Hello everyone. Wanted to post a quick video about my meal planning systems. So first of all, we are a vegan family, meaning we don't eat anything with meat or milk or cheese or eggs. And we happen to live in rural Mississippi. So that means that every meal, for the most part, has to be made by me, or we won't have anything to eat that night. And so meal planning has kind of had to evolve as we add family members to our little household. So when we first got married, and we were vegan before we got married, I just used to plan in regular lined paper, and just regular school lined, college ruled paper. And that worked fine, and until my son was born, baby number one. And then things got a little crazier, and my husband is so techie that he found a great website. And so I graduated from planning on just a plain piece of paper to using a website and an app called Cozy. And so this is it right here. And as you can see, it has a shopping section, a meals section. And so we would use both of these, meals and shopping section. And the meal section actually also has like a place where you can keep track of recipes. And what I really liked about this setup when my son was much younger was that we could organize our grocery list based on aisles, so that when we have the baby with us, when we go grocery shopping, we literally just go in the order that is listed here, and that's how we shop. And it just makes it so much easier. We can get in and out. And so we still use Cozy, but we don't use Cozy exclusively anymore. So I use Cozy mostly for the shopping feature and not so much for the recipe box and the meal planning functionalities that it has now. I probably will come back to this when my kids are a little older, now that there's two babies. So anyway, we phased out of this when I was pregnant, is this stopped working as a sole solution, and I kind of around that time discovered paper planners. And so that's where this little beauty comes in. This is my Plum paper planner. I've had this for a while. I think it's a 16 or 18 month planner when I ordered it, and I used this for a while, and I was loving planning with paper. It just was so much more effective that way. So here is a full, this is right before I had my daughter. I just kind of took some washi tape on the last note sheet on my Plum paper planner, and I would make sure I had about 20 meals that I picked out, and I usually only did about 5 at a time, so I would pick 5 meals for that week. If it's a recipe I made up, then I wouldn't have to write down where it came from or what page number. But if it's a recipe from a book, I would keep track of what book it's from and then what page number in that cookbook it's in. And then as I made it, so I wouldn't assign a meal per weekday. Because things change. So maybe I need an easier meal to cook that night because something comes up, or I have a headache or something, and I don't want to make the meal that's more complicated. And so I would just check them off as I made them. So I had options in the fridge, but I didn't like assigning a particular day, a particular meal, which is what Cozy had you do. I liked just kind of having a list to work off of and options for that week. And I was making lactation cookies in preparation for breastfeeding my baby, and I was making freezer meals for post baby. And so I was planning all these freezer meals, and so I liked the kind of, I could just kind of brain dump and not have things be so rigid in my meal planning. And this worked great until my daughter was born in February. You kind of see, she was actually born on the 24th. And this is about how many meals I got out of it. that month before I stopped planning the more pregnant I got. And yeah, so but same concept. I just kind of listed counted how many meals I had planned, and I would name it, what book it's in, what page number, and then as I cooked them, I would check it off. A lot of these meals have leftover, so I didn't have to plan lunches too much. My son was eating baby food and stuff, and so I didn't have to plan too much for him. But now I have 2 kids under the age of 2 or younger. My son is 2, my daughter is 6 months old now, and planning meals in my plum paper stopped working. I think you can see the following month, nothing. I think I tried to get back to it, and I tried for a while to get back to it, and I just realized around June or July that this wasn't going to work anymore, because I didn't have as much time with my planner as I used to, because of how labor intensive it is to have a little girl that's breastfeeding full time. And so I putting this on hold until life gets a little more settled. And so now I've graduated to a binder system, and I got this little polka dot frame from Teachers Pay Teachers. I just googled free borders on Teachers Pay Teachers, and then I put it in Publisher and typed in meal planning and recipes, and put a little clip art and made it match the colors. And Teachers Pay Teachers had both a solid dots and the border, and I just try to make it somewhat pretty. I don't normally like using binders for stuff like this, but there you go, I'm using a binder. So what we're finding helpful now with the 2 babies is still using Cozy for shopping, but having set menus that we use. So let me back up. We already mentioned the kids and that we're vegan. The first week of every month, I volunteer at the soup kitchen, and so I'm there twice a week for 4 to 5 hours. And because I'm there so much, I don't always have time to make a normal meal. And so realizing that, my husband and I agreed that the first week of the month we were just going to do really easy meals. And so I wrote out, we were going to have pasta. This would be the Monday. This would be the Monday of the first soup kitchen day, the first Monday of the month, and this would be the Wednesday. And so I know I can make very quickly, I can make Hot Pockets and pasta on the 2 soup kitchen days, and in between I can do tacos. And so I kind of wrote myself some notes here on the top: soup kitchen day, Bible study on Tuesdays. My son has speech therapy on Thursdays. We go to the library, and there's church Saturday, Sunday. My husband goes to church on Saturday. I go to church on Sunday because I'm Catholic. He's Seventh-day Adventist. And I already had this PDF. If you've ever heard of Alejandra.tv, she's kind of like an organizational consultant, and she has an online organizational program you can subscribe to called the Power Productivity Program, and I paid for that, and this was one of the printables that you get for meal planning. And so I used something I already had. This was a printable that I used briefly before I had my son, and then I gave it up, and I'm coming back to it. So what I like about this is that I kind of need to have plans for breakfast and lunch for the kids too, and so I could kind of brainstorm some ideas and have some notes. We've decided to do chilaquiles, which is a Mexican dish, every Saturday or Sunday, and pancakes on the weekends, and that kind of stays fixed, and that helps with meal planning too. And then the rest of the weeks we just do either store-bought waffles, cereal, toast for breakfast. For lunch it's either leftovers or a sandwich, and we keep that pretty consistent. I make kale chips pretty often, so that we don't buy potato chips. And so this made it so that I could meal plan at least for the first week of the month, every month, keep it simple, and then have a grocery list ready to go that I can type into Cozy when it's time. I didn't realize it wouldn't focus. I apologize for that. And so why don't I just have this list typed into Cozy? We decided that this kind of forces me to think through what ingredients I already have. I left out all the spices because I usually know off the top of my head what spices we have when you buy spices in bulk for all of these recipes. Like maybe something was on sale and I actually bought 10 cans of garbanzo beans, and so I don't want to have a fixed ready to go list in Cozy. I rather think through each item and type them in each week, which is still a lot faster than having to come up with a whole new menu and then look through all of the cookbooks to come up with a list of ingredients to put in Cozy. You know, because meal planning is more than just coming up with a list of things you want to cook and then creating a shopping list from that. You have to think through, what do I already have for each recipe? What do I need to get? Maybe I'm going to pick a recipe based on a sale. That's what I would normally do, is pick recipes based on what's on sale that week. Locally, we shop at Kroger, and so I would look up to see what produce is on sale and look through my cookbooks and find a recipe. But I just don't have the bandwidth for that right now. And so once this happened, my husband and I agreed, well, let's just have set menus for the other weeks of in a month. And so he would be some menu plans with more recipes that kind of require more steps that aren't as speedy. My son takes dance on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, and tumble on Tuesdays, and I try to take him to the library Mondays and Fridays. And so I kind of write myself notes about what's going on in our lives. I write down what cookbook and what page number that recipe is in. I kind of use code for the cookbooks, or what printout, if I printed a recipe out of the internet. And then again, I pre-typed the major, minus any spices, pre-typed the ingredients I'm going to need. And I type this into Cozy every week, except for anything I already have, or maybe I want to substitute an ingredient because the recipe says you can. I can maybe sometimes use something that's on sale. But for the most part, the grocery list is ready to go for me. And other than the first week of the month, which is fixed, I can kind of look through here out of my pre-planned menus and grocery list and have this as my spine for what I type into Cozy and what we're actually going to buy. And this has worked out beautifully. There's been some trial and error, like this recipe, it made enough for that night, but didn't have any leftovers, and so I wrote a note to double it so that there's enough leftovers for my husband to take lunch. And it's worked out because I don't have to worry about my husband having lunch to take to work for him the next day, which again, we're vegan, he can't always eat out. There's only so many Subway sandwiches you can have, or Subway salads you can have before you go crazy. So I really have to stay on top of making sure I make enough food every night to guarantee that there's enough left over for my husband to take to work the next day, and for my kids to eat, my son to have as well. So yeah, that's my meal planning binder. And again, the printouts are from Alejandra.tv. And then on the other tabs in my book, I just have printouts from recipes that I found on the internet, just categorized by entrees, sauces, and desserts. And that's it. That's my new updated meal planning system. I hope this was helpful to you in some way. And please like and subscribe this, like this video and subscribe if you want more from We Love Jones. Thanks for stopping by, guys.